The thunder hit first. Then the lights went out. Lumi woke to absolute darkness and the unfamiliar weight of an arm across her waist, heavy, warm, and distinctly male. Her heart slammed against her ribs before her brain caught up, and in the space between one breath and the next, she catalogued everything she knew. She was in a hotel room that wasn't hers. She was wearing someone else's shirt. And the man whose arm was draped over her like she was something worth holding onto was a complete stranger. Shit, she didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just lay there in the dark, counting the seconds until her pulse stopped trying to escape through her throat. The storm rattled the windows. Rain lashed against the glass in sheets, and somewhere in the distance, a tree branch cracked and fell. The power had been out for hours. She remembered that much, remembered the hotel clerk's apologetic face as he handed them candles and told them the backup generators wouldn't kick in until morning. She remembered other things too. The way his voice had sounded when he suggested they share the room. The way her own voice had sounded when she agreed. "I don't even know your name, it's Ethan, Lumi, Lumi," he'd repeated, like he was tasting it. "That's not a name you forget," she'd thought it was a line. A smooth, practiced line delivered by a man who knew exactly what effect he had on women. But then he'd laughed, genuinely, unexpectedly, and she'd revised her assessment. He wasn't smooth. He was just tired. Tired in the way people got when they'd been running for too long and had forgotten what they were running from. The arm around her waist tightened slightly, and she felt him shift behind her, heard the rough intake of breath that meant he was waking up. She should move. She should slide out from under his arm and put some distance between them, re-establish the boundaries they'd agreed on last night. Instead, she lay perfectly still, waiting. "Lumi?" His voice was rough with sleep, and there was something in it, surprise, maybe, or the dawning realization that he'd been holding her all night. "Still here," she said quietly. The arm didn't move. He stopped. Cleared his throat. "I didn't mean to, it's fine." "It's not fine. I shouldn't have, Ethan." She turned her head slightly, just enough to see his outline in the darkness. "It's fine. We were cold. Bodies generate heat. It's biology." A pause. Then, "You're very practical. I'm very cold. There's a difference." She heard the smile in his voice before she saw it. "You're going to make this weird on purpose, aren't you?" "I'm going to make this survivable. That's my job." "Your job?" "Making things survivable." She finally moved, sliding out from under his arm and sitting up. The sheet fell away from her shoulders, and she was suddenly very aware that she was wearing nothing but his button-down. You'd be surprised how many people need that. The room was still dark, but her eyes had adjusted enough to see the shape of him sitting up too, the broad set of his shoulders silhouetted against the rain-streaked window. "What kind of job is that?" he asked. "Not a job. A skill. There's a difference." He laughed, that same unexpected laugh from last night, the one that made her want to like him despite all her better instincts. "You're very careful with words," he observed. "I'm careful with everything. Except hotel rooms with strangers." She should have felt defensive. Instead, she felt something else, something she didn't have a name for. "Except that," she agreed. That was a miscalculation. Miscalculation. He said the word like he was testing it. "I don't think it was." The air between them shifted. Changed. Lumi stood up, groping for the candle on the nightstand. Her fingers found the matches beside it, and she struck one, watching the flame leap to life and cast shadows across the room. He was watching her. She could feel it. "I'm going to find coffee," she said, because that was easier than dealing with whatever was happening in his eyes. The lobby had a machine. Before the power went out. The lobby's 3 floors down. In the dark. I'm resourceful. She found her jeans on the chair by the window and pulled them on under the shirt, not bothering to be modest about it. He'd already seen her in less, last night, when she'd been shivering and soaked and too exhausted to care about propriety. You could stay, he said quietly. The rain's not going to let up for hours. I know. She paused at the door, her hand on the handle. But I need coffee. And you need to figure out what you're going to do. About what? About the wedding you're running from. The silence that followed was heavy. She'd hit a nerve, she knew she'd hit a nerve the moment she said it. It was in the way his breathing changed, the way the air in the room seemed to compress. How did you know? His voice was different now. Guarded. The hotel clerk recognized you, she said. She asked if you were the Whitmore. And then she looked at you like you'd just walked out of a burning building and didn't realize you were on fire. He didn't answer. It's okay, she said. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just saying, whatever you're running from, it's not going to get any smaller while you're hiding in a hotel room with a stranger. She opened the door. Lumi. She stopped. The coffee machine's broken, he said. I saw them take it away last night. She let out a breath. Of course it is. Stay. His voice was softer now. I'll make coffee in the bathroom with the hot water. It'll be terrible, but it'll be caffeine. She turned to look at him. In the candlelight, he looked younger than she'd thought. More uncertain. You're not going to try to leave, she said. I'm not going to leave, he agreed. Not yet. She hesitated. And then she closed the door, walked back to the bed, and sat down on the edge of it, watching him in the flickering candlelight. Okay, she said. Make me terrible coffee. I'll stay. The coffee was, as promised, terrible. But it was hot, and it was caffeine, and she found herself sitting cross-legged on the bed while he told her things he hadn't told anyone else. I met her in college, he said. Jenny. She's complicated? Perfect. He rubbed the back of his neck. On paper, she's perfect. Her family's perfect. Our wedding was going to be perfect. Everything was supposed to be perfect. Lumi said nothing. She just watched him, waiting. And then I woke up one day and realized I didn't want perfect, he continued. He stopped. What? I don't know. He laughed, but it was hollow. Something real. Something that felt like mine. Not something that had been planned out for me since I was 12. So you ran. I ran. To a hotel in the middle of nowhere. It was the first place I saw. He looked at her, and there was something raw in his expression. I didn't plan this. I didn't plan any of it. Nobody plans things like this, she said. That's the point. You can't plan the things that actually matter. He stared at her. You talk like someone who's been through something. I talk like someone who's been paying attention. That's not an answer. No, she agreed. But it's an answer to the question you're not asking. He was quiet for a moment. Then, what's the question I'm not asking? She met his eyes. You want to know if I think you're a coward for leaving. He didn't answer. You're not, she said. A coward wouldn't have left. A coward would have stayed and pretended. You left because you couldn't pretend anymore. That takes something. Something stupid, he said. Something brave, she corrected. They're often the same thing. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere genuine. You're the strangest person I've ever met, he said. Thank you. Not an insult. I know. She smiled. I'm a professional. I can tell the difference. They stayed in the room for 3 hours. The power came back around noon, and the lights flickered on, harsh and yellow after the soft darkness of the storm. The rain had led up to a drizzle, and through the window, Lumi could see the highway, the way out. She should leave. She knew she should leave. She had things to do, places to be, a life that didn't involve hiding in a hotel room with a man who was supposed to be getting married tomorrow. But she didn't move. You're thinking about leaving, he said. I'm always thinking about leaving. It's a problem. Don't. He said it quietly, almost absently, like he hadn't meant to say it at all. She looked at him. Don't what? Don't leave. He met her eyes. Not yet. I know I don't have any right to ask you to stay. I know we're strangers. I know this is complicated, she supplied. Complicated, he agreed. But I don't want to be alone right now. And you, he paused. You make it feel less like I'm falling apart. She should have made a joke. She should have deflected, made it light, made it something they could both pretend wasn't happening. Instead, she said, I'm not going to fix you, Ethan. I know. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I know that too. She stopped, searching for the right words. I'm just someone who's good at sitting in the dark with people. He smiled, slow and warm. That's all I need. They left the hotel together. The rain had stopped, and the sun was breaking through the clouds in thin, watery beams. The parking lot was littered with branches and leaves, and the air smelled like wet earth and fresh beginnings. I should get you home, he said, standing by his car. Where do you live? I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not going to ask you to stay. I know you're not. She looked at him, standing there in the gray light, his hair still damp from the storm, his eyes still carrying the weight of everything he'd been running from. That's the problem. I don't understand. You're the kind of man who makes women want to stay, she said. Not because you're charming. Because you're honest. Because you're not trying to be anything other than what you are. He watched her, waiting. And I'm the kind of woman who's very good at leaving, she continued. So this, she gestured between them. This is going to be a problem. Then don't leave. Ethan, I'm not asking you to stay forever. He stepped closer. I'm asking you to stay today. That's all. Just today. She looked at him for a long moment. And then she said, I'm never going to be the answer to your problems. I know. I'm just going to be someone who sits in the dark with you. That's enough. She shook her head, but she was smiling. You're ridiculous. I know. I'm probably going to regret this. Probably. She got in the car. They drove for an hour. He talked about his architecture, the buildings he designed, the ones he wanted to design, the way he thought about space and light and how people moved through rooms. She listened, and she found herself asking questions that surprised her. You think about it differently than most architects, she said. How do you know? Because you're not talking about lines and angles. You're talking about how people feel. That's not architecture. She paused. That's something else. What? Art, maybe. He glanced at her, quick and surprised. I never thought of it that way. Most people don't. She looked out the window. That's why most buildings are terrible. He laughed. That's the most specific observation anyone's ever made about my work. I'm a very specific person. I'm starting to see that. They drove in silence for a while. It wasn't uncomfortable, the kind of silence that felt like breathing, like they'd known each other longer than a single night in a storm-wrecked hotel. What happened to you? He asked eventually. The thing you mentioned. The thing you went through. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I was in a relationship. A long one. She stopped. He was the kind of man who thought he could fix me. I let him try for 3 years before I realized I didn't need fixing. What happened? I left. She said it simply, without self-pity. And I've been leaving ever since. You don't stay. I stay in rooms. I stay in jobs. I stay in cities. She looked at him. I don't stay in people. Because you're afraid. Because I'm practical. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. People are the thing you can't control. So I don't try. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you're not as practical as you think. Why? Because you stayed in that hotel room with me, he said. When you could have left. When you should have left. You stayed. She didn't have an answer for that. He pulled up outside a small diner, the kind with neon signs and cracked vinyl booths. The parking lot was empty, and through the windows, she could see a waitress wiping down the counter. What are we doing here? She asked. I need to think, he said. And I think better when I'm eating. You're going to make a decision. I'm going to try. She followed him inside. The waitress was middle-aged, silver-haired, and she looked at them like she'd been expecting them. Booth in the back, she said. Coffee's fresh. They slid into opposite sides of the booth, and Lumi watched him as he stared at the menu without really seeing it. You don't have to do this today, she said quietly. You don't have to decide anything. I've been not deciding for 3 years, he said. At some point, it's just cowardice in a nice suit. I thought we established that you're not a coward. Then what am I? She studied him. You're someone who's been doing what other people expected for too long. And now you don't know what you actually want. That's exactly the problem. It's not a problem. She leaned forward. It's a beginning. You're allowed to not know. You're allowed to figure it out one day at a time. He looked at her. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple. But it's not complicated either. You just have to. She stopped, searching for the right words. You have to let yourself want something. Anything. Even if you're not sure it's the right thing. I want to kiss you, he said. The words hung between them. Lumi blinked. I know. He didn't look away. I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other. I know it's messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea. But I've been wanting to kiss you since you told me I wasn't a coward. Ethan, I'm not asking you to tell me it's okay. His voice was steady. I'm just telling you the truth. Because you said I should let myself want something. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I want you to kiss me too. Lumi. That doesn't mean I think it's a good idea. It doesn't mean I think we should, she gestured vaguely. Do anything about it. But you asked. And I'm telling you the truth. He stared at her. Don't look at me like that, she said. Like what? Like I just said something important. You just said something important. I just said something honest. There's a difference. I don't think there is. He reached across the table and took her hand. His fingers were warm against hers. I don't think you know how rare that is. Honesty. Just saying what you feel. I'm honest because I don't stay, she said. It's easier to be honest when you know you're going to walk away. Then don't walk away. Ethan, not forever. He squeezed her hand. Just today. Stay today. She looked at their hands, at the way his fingers curled around hers. Okay, she said. Today. They ate pie. They talked about nothing and everything, the books they'd read, the cities they'd visited, the small moments that had shaped them into who they were. She told him about her job, the way she made other people's words sound better. He told her about the first building he'd ever designed, a tiny coffee shop that had gone out of business 6 months after opening. It was terrible, he admitted. The windows were all wrong. The light came in at the wrong angle. Nobody wanted to sit there. But you learned, she said. I learned. He smiled. I think that's the only thing I'm good at. Learning from things that don't work. That's the only thing anyone's good at, she said. People who succeed the first time are just lucky. People who learn are the ones who actually know how to survive. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you really think that? I know it. She met his eyes. I've survived a lot of things by learning. You don't get through what I've been through by being perfect. You get through it by being willing to be wrong. What did you get through? She hesitated. Then, I was engaged once. The word hung in the air between them. You? He looked surprised. You don't seem like the type. People always think that. She smiled, but there was something tired in it. I was younger. I thought love was something that happened to you. Something you fell into. But it's not. It's something you choose. Every day. What happened? I chose wrong. She said it simply, without self-pity. And when I realized I'd chosen wrong, I left. And I've been making sure I don't choose wrong again. By not choosing at all. By being careful. She pulled her hand back from his, and the warmth of his fingers disappeared. There's a difference. Is there? She didn't answer. They left the diner as the sun was setting. The sky was streaked with orange and pink, and the neon sign flickered to life as they walked back to the car. The air was cool and clean, washed clean by the storm. I need to go, she said. I know. My car's still at the hotel. I'll drive you back. She nodded, and they got in the car. The drive was quiet, but it wasn't the comfortable silence from before. There was something charged in the air between them, something that felt like a question waiting to be asked. They pulled into the hotel parking lot. Her car was still there, alone and waiting. Lumi. He turned to look at her, and his eyes were serious. I'm not going to ask you to stay. But I'm going to ask you to tell me if you want to. Want to what? Want to see what happens next. He paused. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. But I know I don't want to walk away from you. She looked at him for a long moment. And then she said, I'm never going to be the answer to your problems. I know. And I'm never going to be the woman who stays forever. I know. But today, she stopped. Today was a good day. He smiled. It was. She opened the door and stepped out into the fading light. The air was cool against her skin, and she could hear the distant sound of traffic on the highway. I'll see you around, Ethan. Lumi. She turned. The wedding's off, he said. I called her this morning. While you were in the shower. She stared at him. It's not because of you, he said quickly. It's not just because of you. It's because I finally realized I needed to stop pretending. You just helped me see it. She was quiet for a moment. Then she walked back to the car and leaned down to look at him through the open window. I don't know what to say to that, she said. You don't have to say anything. He reached up and touched her face, gentle, careful. I'm not asking you to be the reason. I'm just telling you the truth. Because you deserve that. She leaned into his touch, just for a moment. Then she straightened and stepped back. Thank you, she said. For what? For being honest. She smiled. It's harder than people think. You make it look easy. I've had practice. She walked back to her car, and she didn't look back. She drove home in silence. The highway was empty, and the city lights were just beginning to flicker on, scattered like stars across the darkening sky. She should have felt relieved. She should have felt like she'd escaped something. Instead, she felt like she'd left something behind. Her phone buzzed as she pulled into her apartment building's parking lot. She looked at the screen. Ethan, I'm going to get coffee tomorrow at the diner. 8 a.m. I'll be there. If you want to come. If not, that's okay too, She stared at the message for a long moment. She should say no. She knew she should say no. She typed back, I'll think about it, Ethan. That's not a no, Lumi. It's not a yes either, Ethan. I'll take it, she smiled despite herself. Then she put the phone away and went inside. The next morning, she woke at 7:15. She lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling, thinking about a man with tired eyes and the way he touched her face like she was something precious. She didn't have to go. She knew she didn't have to go. But she wanted to. She got dressed and drove to the diner. He was sitting in the same booth, 2 cups of coffee waiting on the table. He looked up when she walked in, and his face broke into a smile. You came, he said. I was in the neighborhood. He laughed. You were not in the neighborhood. Fine. She slid into the booth across from him. I came because I wanted to see if you were still going to marry her. Still not marrying her. I thought you said that was a process. It's a process. He pushed a cup of coffee toward her. But I've started the process. That's the important part. She wrapped her hands around the cup and let the warmth seep into her fingers. What happens now? I don't know. He shrugged. I'm going to figure it out. One day at a time. That sounds terrifying. It is. He looked at her. But it's better than pretending. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I don't know what I'm doing here. Neither do I. I'm not going to fix you. I know. I'm not going to stay forever. I know that too. He reached across the table and took her hand. But you're here now. And that's enough. She looked at their hands, at the way his fingers curled around hers. You're ridiculous, she said. I know. I'm going to regret this. Probably. She squeezed his hand. Okay, she said. Let's see what happens.